Well, it's that time of the week to tune in and listen to us reformed bad boys. I'm not sure bad boys, I'm pretty sure just stupid. But me, Todd Carney, and my great mates, Mitchell Pearce, my bags are packed for Vegas. I'm ready to go. But I will say one thing before we start. Last week I let you off pretty lightly. I know you've got some Vegas stories tucked up your sleeve. So give us one before you tell us how your weekend was. What caught your eye? We'll cast our eyes over some rugby league games, some big stories over the weekend, and answer some people's questions today. But first of all, first cab off the rank, because Vegas is on my mind, my bags are packed. I need you to give me something. The fans want something.
Well, the only thing was I got one story from me and my old teammate and good mate, James Maloney. It was actually before we went to Vegas. Wasn't even getting there. We had a massive night with the 2013 team. Nick Politis took the whole group over to LA, then Vegas, for a little trip in celebration.
Salary cap?
Yeah, business trip. It was a business trip, work trip. But I remember getting over there, and so we had a massive night in LA, hardly slept, obviously, and then one of those nights when you're getting your hour sleep in, pack your bags quick to get on the bus. So I think the drive from LA to Vegas is about 3 hours, and we're about an hour in, and everyone's just packed their bags, jumped on this mini bus, trying to get some more sleep because everyone was in the horrors. About an hour into the drive, and it just went alarm bell in the brain that we'd forgotten our passports. Me and Jimmy. So I've messaged Jimmy. Everyone's asleep on the bus, and I'm thinking we're an hour and a half into the trip. So to turn around, go all the way back, and then come back again is another 3 hours. The boys are that pumped just to get there. And then I messaged Jimmy on the sly and said, "Jim, I think we forgot our passports." And I wasn't brave enough to say it out loud. Jimmy just goes, "Turn the fucking bus around."
That's Jimmy Maloney, isn't it? He just doesn't give a rat's.
All the boys woke up pretty quick. Fair few sprays. We had to turn the bus around, go back, get our passports, and then come again. So there's plenty more stories, but that was a funny one.
That's so good. It's interesting how I've packed my bags for Vegas. First things packed, usually are jeans and some going out clubber. This time around, it's some footy boots because I'm playing the Nines. And second thing is all my podcast gear because I'm a podcaster now, just chasing the dream of podcast. I know, how good is it? Like I'm not like in my element here. I've got my own little room at the house now. I've got some photos out. I'm not sure Susie really thought about for the podcast room, so I'll have to chuck some jumpers up and get it going.
How many games are playing, Toddy? What's the rundown over there?
The first day you play 4 games, so like 9-minute halves, so not much. And then the next day you're guaranteed 1 game. So there's 22 teams.
22?
Yeah, 22. I was looking at some of the teams. They're like just big boys. Dylan Apper's playing for the Brooklyn team. My team, Titan Industries, I was following the chat last night, and they're a group of young blokes that sort of look like they love a good time. They were on the pokies last night. One of them won 7K, so your Vegas story might not match it to some of these boys. Hopefully I'll get there and they'll play a bit of footy.
Let's be honest, there's not many of them be going over there sober to Las Vegas.
No, that's right. And that's what it's about for them. Some of them kids, it's I'm going over there to do a bit of networking, try and do maybe with me live podcast, try and get someone to sneak on and say hello. I'll try and find a rugby league player or a fan over there to, instead of getting our question from the fan on our Instagram, I might see if we can get him in here on screen while I'm over there and ask you a question, which would be cool. Well, some big performance from key individuals over the weekend and some not so good. The Brisbane Broncos win the preseason challenge. How does that give confidence to the Broncos? 100K in their bank. The Madge effect, is it on early? Do they start sort of pumping their own tyres up? Or what's your thoughts on the preseason challenge? And obviously there's a winner of the outcome to win the 100K. Does it give you confidence if you're the Broncos? And obviously Madge would be excited because, as you said, and one of our first shows when we reviewed the Broncos, he's a winner, and that's what he demands. And he sort of jumped straight out and got that first one.
Yeah, well, I think it definitely gives you confidence. I think rugby league's about winning, regardless if it's a trial game or a competition game. But as I think we said last week on the show, with the money and the TV rights now in the game, all this every game's a challenge now. Every game's players are playing for something, and like you just said, the 100K that was on offer. There's no doubt players were going out there to win, even though it is a trial game. There would have been a party, especially as a coach, where you want to perform, you want to win. The Broncos had to do it the hard way on the weekend to earn that, I suppose, prize, if that's how they wanted to look at it, the preseason prize. But they were down, 16-0 against a good Dogs team early. It was a great game of footy. I love watching games at Suncorp Stadium, even though, as we said, it was a trial game. It's just such a good atmosphere up there. It's always got a rep game feel about it. And, they had to work hard on the weekend, but I think the way they won, Madge would be really happy with. We said last week, Madge's effects been very obvious from the start. Their ruck defence is so much more tidy than it's been over the last few years, even in the grand final season 2 years ago. He's got them really tidy around the ruck defensively. Their edges are combining really well together, and they're going to be dogged this year. They're going to go after teams. But for me, what I love about them is, Tony Stagg's line break on the right, their ability to play from anywhere. Reece Walsh gets a try. They've just got superstar players all across the field, and they're going to be lethal this year if they complete good and hold that defensive steel throughout the season. I can't see too many teams beating them at home this year up there with the packed stadium. Their challenge will be on the road and how they handle, all the obstacles that come during the season, because at the end of the day, they've got Madge there and they've got a couple of senior players, but they do have a younger squad. I can't wait to watch them this year because they're just entertaining. They got it all. They got the defensive system down pat with Madge there. They're going to keep getting better in that way, but they've just got superstars that can play footy and they're athletic. They're so big, aren't they, Toddy?
They are big, and I like some of the big guys that come off the bench. Obviously, they're starting pack, but that one superstar you did talk about, Reece Walsh, I heard a funny interview after the game on the weekend. During the week, sort of Flano, obviously, is a bit like a school kid, actually, sort of going back and forth at Ben Hunt, which I don't think's needed. They've made the decision for Ben to leave. They kept him around last year, which is funny. Flano sort of said he won't keep players around if they don't want to be there. Well, Ben Hunt didn't want to be there last year, and he sort of said that Ben Hunt still has some bad habits in his game that he needs to get out of. And in the interview on Sunday after the game, Reece Walsh, they said, how's it been with Ben Hunt? What's he brought to the club? And he goes, he's really got some bad habits in his game that he really needs to iron out, which I think's funny. It's a bit of banter, and I just love that grin. Watching Reece Walsh run out on the weekend, if he's in any team, they'll perform really well, I reckon, because he's that superstar. But it was our first look at the Broncos, which we'll touch on later. Obviously, some other news come out of the trials, which isn't always great. A few injuries. Your great mate, Kieran Foran, looking at 10 to 12 weeks with a ruptured bicep or partially tore bicep. And then Lewis Dodd and Curran, both looking at week 1 of suspension. I think for Curran it'll be disappointing. For Lewis Dodd, it's probably a bit of a blessing. But the first team we'll sort of touch over today is the Penrith Panthers versus Manly Sea Eagles. Penrith winning 38-22. Manly is probably the only team over the trials that didn't play their 6, 7 and 1. They went with Jake Arthur again in the halves, which obviously there's always question marks if you don't play your players, how their cohesion will be come round 1. But last year they probably showed that they're good enough to play for out trials, and they probably don't want to risk them with injuries and stuff like that. It was a completely different performance for Manly for me. Penrith just outplayed them. We got to see some of the depth that the Penrith Panthers have, and it's crazy to say depth because they've lost so many players, and then there's new players come into their positions, which you'll speak about in a minute about systems and that, Mitch. But one kid that did catch my eye, which is another number 7. It'd be fun to say, there's another number 7 at Penrith. They must just have a list of players ready to don the number 7 jumper. Trent Talia, if I say that right, sorry, buddy. If not, he was in everything, scoring tries, setting up tries, great kicking game, great goal kicker, and just looked like a competitor. What was your thoughts on that game? And I know you want to touch on a subject about systems and what systems do to teams. You've got a player you've picked out for the Panthers that you want to have a chat about.
Yeah, I was just going to say before you start, if you're going to be if you have aspirations to play NRL as a young kid, I'll be moving my family out to Mount Druitt or Penrith and going through the system out there, because honestly, like their player pool, like for the modern game, and it speaks for itself to win 4 comps in a row, but you just go through all the way their juniors play and then all the systems we're going to get to in a second about the players coming through. They just do it right out there, and they've just got the best young athletes in the game in that area out there. It's such a credit to Ivan Cleary, Gus Gould, these type of guys, obviously, that have set this up over the last sort of 10 years, and then obviously the senior group that they got there. But it was such a pleasure to watch them. I thought from Penrith, John Fanua, like I said, Toddy just said then, sorry if we're getting these names wrong. It's difficult when you come through these trials with all these new names. But John Fanua at the back was outstanding at 1. Trent Talea, is that how, did we say that? Talea. Billy Scott, I thought at 9, kid from Hill Sports. A lot of players have come out of there. He was really solid. And the one for me that stood out, which was, we talk about systems, Billy Phillips, who was a dead set Yowie clone at 13. He's just been dead set watching Yowie all through the last couple of years, because his impact in there at lock was huge. But you talk about systems, Toddy, and it was so impressive watching Penrith, the way that to have all their best players out, all the turnover of players that they've had from their grand final years. Obviously, their best player in the world at the moment, Nath Cleary, best lock in the world in Isaiah Yeo. Any other team that are in the bottom part of the 8 or even not going to make the 8, they take out their best players in trial games. It's sometimes horrible to watch. But you bring in the Penrith system that's been implemented over the last 5 years through all their juniors and through the NRL system, and you get this type of result. You get confidence, you get players coming in, not second-guessing what their roles are, because from the juniors, from Harold Matthews to NRL, they're all practiced there. They practice what the system, and when we say system, it's what the NRL coaches and recruitment or head of development, what they put in place. And the idea around it is, this is how we play, this is what we look like. And all your skill sessions, all of your training sessions are all built around understanding what it is to be a Panther or a Rooster or a Melbourne Storm. Each club have got their own identity, but you can see it so clearly when you watch the trial games and new players come in. They're just really assured of what their role is. They're like clones, like I said, of their NRL players in front of them that have been doing it for years. And just what fans watching, you might underestimate this skill and how hard it is to do that, but it takes a lot of effort from a club to implement all that so that it's educated from a young age. And it's just so good to watch. And it's also very obvious where these elite clubs in the game compared to the sides that are on a bit of a roller coaster year after year. The ones that get this right, and there's only a few at the moment that are getting that consistent result year after year, and it's because it's in cement, and all these players know what their role is when they come into the club. They know how to behave, and they know what style that is expected of them.
Yeah, and that's massive what you say then. Like, I think I mentioned it the other week about the undisputed doco at Penrith that they had last year throughout the 24 season. If you do get time, have a look at that, and that does talk about their systems and what players they look for and what they try and achieve. And one team that has achieved, I guess, over the weekend that caught my eye was the Tigers against Parramatta. I was going into this game really expecting Parramatta to put on a performance like last week. A lot of stars still out. Obviously, their starting halves, Moses and Dylan Brown, were still out. But I still thought they would come up with the way Ronald Vulcan played last week. But the Tigers, for me, they outplayed Para 30-14. But the two guys that caught my eye was Terrell May and his front row partner, Fanua Pole. They were outstanding, both running for over 160 metres, 20-plus tackles, no misses. Sorry, 2 misses. But they went forward for the Tigers, and their halves played that way. They had Adam Dewey and Galvin in the halves, which started well before Naden got injured and Dewey moved to the centres. But the Tigers looked good. They've got some young kids that are eager to run hard. Then the two middles that I just spoke about, we speak about halves playing on the front foot. They gave Galvin and Dewey to play on the front foot and give them an opportunity to play well. For Parramatta, we got some glimpses of the brilliance of Isaiah Longy at fullback. He scored an individual effort from the scrum or from a sweep out the back, and just his sort of movement, like his ability to keep like his structure like strong while he gets hit and bumped. Just centre of gravity was great. And obviously the big eyes for everyone over the weekend was obviously watching Zach Lomax how he perform at Para. Didn't get a lot of ball. Looks big, looks strong. But he will obviously grow into those colours, and when the big names come out, obviously Para will be a lot better team. But yeah, the Tigers to me, it was impressive. It was impressive the way the middles went forward.
Yeah, well, you just spoke about Isaiah Longy. It was so good to watch his how good he is. He's a live wire. I think with the replacement, losing someone like Gutho, and you saw his influence, we'll talk about later at the Dragons on the weekend, was being that leader, that guy that's just in every play, all effort player. I think if Para was going to replace Gutho, they need someone similar or something different. And I like the kid that they've just brought in with Longy. Just his ability to break tackles, as you said, he's really strong in his base. He can break tackles physically. He's got great speed. It might be just that little bit of X factor that they've been missing. We spoke about Para a few times being all similar leg speed, a bit of a one-pace type of team. And you bring in Josh Adokar now. Lomax is obviously a bit quieter on the weekend, but he's going to be one of their best. And then Longy at the back with Mitch Moses and a fit spine there with I've just had a brain snap. Who's our man? 5'8"?
Dylan Brown.
Dylan Brown, yeah. Dylan Brown there, fit and hungry. It gives them a little bit of leg speed now and a bit of X factor, which I think they've sort of lacked the last couple of years. So I'm really excited to see the development of Isaiah Longy at the back there. Hopefully he can handle it physically week to week, but he was really impressive. He's actually a Penrith junior, so couldn't get a start over there. He's obviously behind Dylan Edwards over there for years, and hopefully it's the start of a good journey for him. But yeah, Tigers too. How good was it watching Adam Dewey and Galvin carving up in the 6 and 7? I think undercover we're all Tigers is everyone's second team. Well, they're definitely mine. I grew up around there, and as much as we criticise Tigers, and rightly so, you want to see the Tigers do well. And I like the dynamics of what they're bringing. We spoke about it before. Their recruitment has been good for a side that was in not very attractive for players to go to. Benji's done a really good job there at bringing the right players in this year. Terrell May is going to be outstanding. He was one of the Roosters' best players. There was a lot of talk and innuendo around why he left there. And on form, he was their top 3 front rowers last year and over the last couple of years. So you know what you're going to get with Terrell. I know him personally. He's got an unbelievable attitude. He's a professional. Really a leader in that young pack. So Terrell's going to be outstanding for them this year. And that leg speed, especially Jack Bird got a nice little try there too. If we can get him fit, he's going to be an X factor for him. They're starting to just get that little bit of presence that they've lacked a little bit. Talk about Adam Dewey. I love Adam Dewey. There was a couple of years ago there when he was the 5'8" at the Tigers. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. And he was their best player, and he was having some really big games. I remember some standout games where he was getting man of the match in a side where, to be honest, he didn't have much around him. He's obviously going to look more likely with Luai coming back to play in the centres this year, but Adam Dewey's just as comfortable in the halves at 7 or 6. I've heard him speak a few times. He speaks really confident. He seems like a real leader, and even through those tough lean years a couple of years ago with the Tigers, he was always the positive voice. So yeah, it's good to see. I think the Tigers are going to be a side that rolls off momentum this year, but at least now they've got a little bit of muscle there, and it's like you said, in the front row, and a bit of confidence and swagger and a bit of character. So hopefully they gain a bit out of that win. And who they got round 1?
That's a question I don't know. But when you talk about swagger, and their players that they've brought in, obviously they've got Jerome Buller at fullback with Jerome Luai in halves, Galvin at 6, Corus out 9, That's a fair spine. If obviously they'll take some teething issues early, obviously to find that groove together. Olam in the centres. I like him in the centres. He's to come back. He didn't play the trials over the weekend. But I think with the Tigers, you're going to have to expect some lapses. You're going to have to expect some probably big points put on them sometimes because that we talk about systems and defensive systems. That's where I think they struggled with last year. They've got the ability. They will have the ability, to score points this year with the players they've brought in and the forwards off the way their platform is. But I think they'll still struggle with some defensive structures, which will take time. And I'm sure they would have worked on that over the season, used that as one of their key pillars to get better at because of the way they performed last year. Like, you've got to defend to win games, and we all know that. So I think that's would be a big focus for them. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how they actually go. As you said, they're everyone's second team, and we want to see them perform. Let's get them off the bottom of the ladder, try and get them up there, and who knows where they go to. It'd be good to see them play finals. I'm not sure if I see him doing that yet, but it's definitely an improvement from last year. And we'll get our first look at Jerome Luai in the halves.
Sixes and Sevens is brought to you by Property 360. Property 360 offers a complete property acquisition service designed to deliver quantifiable results for investors. Their team of passionate acquisition advisors provides privileged insights and conducts thorough market analysis to secure the best real estate deals for your property portfolio. As the preferred partner of NRL players and staff, Property 360 has a proven track record of helping clients grow their wealth beyond life on the field. Head to property360.com.au to find out more.
Before we go into the next game, I'm going to break it up and I'm going to get a fan question over to us. Our fan question this week, or we're going to ask for 2 or 3 this week. First one is from Sam Swift, one of my teachers, one of the coaches at Keebra Park. He wants to ask you, Mitch, what is the 3 things you would teach a young half or mentor for young halves that are coming through?
3 things you teach a young half. I think firstly it's skills. Maybe not in this order, but yeah, skills for sure. You got to, from a young half, you need to have all your basic skills. When we say skills, you're stripping it right back to basics. Your catch pass, the way you hold the ball, your kicking technique, your starting points. A lot of your stuff just around basic skills. I think a lot of kids, even in junior systems, are quick to try and go to the trick play, or they're quick to try and come up with the magic pass where it's all about stripping it right back. If you can't nail a 10-metre pass or a 20-metre pass or get your 10-metre kicks on the point consistently, you're jumping too far ahead. So, yeah, basic skills. For me, the other one is attitude around training and discipline.
I like that.
Yeah, you need your attitude and your training standards as a half. You need to be the energy, you need to set the energy for the rest of the players in your team. You need to work and outwork everyone else through your desire to want to get better. We spoke about it last week around curiosity. So being curious about wanting to learn, doing your video, watching every game of footy on the weekend. And the other thing is defence. Get your tackle right, because you can have all the skills in the world, you can have a good attitude, but if you get out there and you're missing tackles, you fall behind. So get in there and enjoy the tough stuff.
Yeah, nice. My take from that, Mitch, obviously I'm a coach too, is that attitude's a big one, and the ability to want to learn, to be able to sort of focus on what's in tasking, not getting lost in the big plays, worrying about if you can kick the ball 5 metres, 10 metres, 15 metres, 20 metres. And a big one for me is video. And I don't think many schools or even coaches at junior levels use video. And it's not so much video of themselves; it's video of the cream of the crop in the NRL at the moment. And it doesn't mean you have to play like them, but we sort of teach kids to play block shape. We teach kids to do all these different plays. And if they don't watch football, it would be like talking Chinese to them, because when you're saying, "Oh, you got to run this shape for this shape," but they don't watch football. Where if you show them the shape you want them to run, they then get a visual of what they're actually trying to do on the field instead of going, okay, we've got to get to the 60 or the 40 and then we're going to play long for long. But if they don't watch footy, it becomes hard because if they're so young, their processes won't get it right unless if they see it visually, they might be able to emulate it. Not as good as the player that they're watching, but I think it gives them a chance to understand what they actually want out of the drill or want out of the play that they're trying to execute. So
that's a good point you say there, Toddy. Like, and we're even at all the levels that we played at, unless you're prepared as a halfback or 5'8", and you understand the game plan and, as you just said, history before you, what other players are doing and how other players do it, you get exposed, you get surprised, don't you? And I think that's a big thing you see with some young halves that aren't thinking about footy or doing their preparation is they get out into a game situation with a bit of pressure, and because it's not in there subconsciously and they haven't done the work, it becomes too hard. There's too many things going through your head, right? So it's good advice. Do your homework, study all the players before you, find your own edge as well, but you got to do the work, boys. You got to do the video.
Yeah, and that's right. Well, I think the thing is, like you're trying to say, is like I know when I was coming through, and I think you're a big fan of Andrew Johns. Like when I was in the backyard, I used to say, I'm Andrew Johns passing the ball. I got the chance to work with Matthew at Canberra at a younger age, and they coach very similar about the way they hold the ball above belly button, high elbows, obviously digging in. And then I started to practice that where the players now, they've got the luxury of some really good players. And one thing I do notice with players, younger kids, that they fall into the habit of passing off their inside foot and trying to play that block shape. It actually stops them getting a visual of what's in front of them. So they go forward, they come off the inside of their foot and try and rip it out the back, but then they lose sight of what's in front. Where you watch players at the moment, the players that are doing it really well are playing it off the front foot. So then gives a chance to dummy and run, where if they pass on the inside foot, they can't actually build momentum from that. So it's an interesting one, and I'm sure Swifty will take away from that. Next teams we're going to be talking about is South v the Dragons. Dragons went out winners 46-26. The first half was fire for the Dragons. Sinoni Faunu, 4 tries in the first half. Then went off with heat stroke. I've never seen it before, but
mate, I thought it was because I did the game, Toddy, for Triple M, so I watched it really closely. But because Lewis Dodd got sent off or 10 in the bin for the high tackle, on Sione, So I didn't know if it was heat stroke or it was from the head knock, because it was the footage on the TV when we were doing the game was a bit delayed. We didn't realise he'd been sent off. But so was it heat stroke or was it from the head knock? Because he looked awful.
Mate, when he was coming off, like he obviously put the ball down. I thought, oh no, he's hurt himself scoring a try. That's the worst curse ever. But then all of a sudden he's got up, and then the trainer had him. He sort of went like he went limp, which was quite funny.
Dangerous.
Obviously, it's dangerous because it's hot out there. Or it was just I've just scored 4 tries. Put me on ice, coach. I'm ready to go for round 1. Like it's an unbelievable. That's what we talk about trials. It gives players an ability to showcase their skills, and he'd done that on the week. And obviously, 2 of the tries, he probably just had to put the ball down because his superstar centre inside of him gave him that space in Valentine Holmes. But the Dragons' first half was so impressive. Impressive, but also got taken away a little bit the way they let South back in the game in the second half. And that's the things we speak about with Dragons, that they might leak points or they'll go back to their lapses, but it was impressive the way they played. We weren't hard on the halves last week, but we spoke about how we think they'd play or how we would play them, and we got a good glimpse of the way they'll play. The way Kyle Flanagan shifts from the short side, the open side, and crabs across the field and plays out the back. I like that. Lockie Ellis was a bit more of a calmer head on the weekend. He took control down that right side. But, yeah, and obviously Guffo through the middle. He showed his old legs when he made a break on the weekend. He nearly got run down, but got it back to the inside of the field for Ilias to score. But, yeah, I was really impressed with the Dragons. The one player that caught my eye was on the beating team, but we speak about trials again, and I always talk about this. When you get an opportunity, you take it with both hands. And this kid on the weekend, Jamie Humphreys, he's got an opportunity to go to South, first and foremost. He was a 7, looking at him for a 9. Lewis Dodd gets 10 in the bin. at halftime because of the new rule. Jamie Humphries goes into the 7 and just does what South needed.
Yeah,
and I think he's obviously put his hand up for round one, more so now that Lewis won't be ready, available for round one. But just the way he played, he played confident, but he didn't try and play above his needs. He dropped blokes under. He kicked well. He led his kick chase. His defence was in order, but he just got the players to the positions on the field. And we speak about South. If a player like him can get them to the positions on the field for their big players like Cody Walker, probably more so Jack White at the moment with Latrell out, Jai Gray's got so much skill. He's a live wire. He just moves around the park really well. But I think if they go for Jamie Humphries, I think he's got the ability for them to work around him and just him be a steady head.
Yeah, I think first mention, I did watch this game really closely. It was a funny game of two halves, literally. Just Jai Gray, I want to give him a compliment. Just talking about South there, he's such a good little player. He's probably that week to week with Latrell there and that type of thing. He's probably not going to play a heap of footy, but for any team, if you wanted a Jai Gray on your side, you're going to get a heap of energy. You're going to get a good replacement when he does get a start. He's a great little support player. What he lacks in size, he does it with effort and energy, and he pops up in every play. So I thought he was great, especially even in the first half in a way-beaten side. You spoke about Jamie Humphries. Look, I'm not ready to kick the boot in Lewis Dodd yet. It's one of those things when you come out as a big signing, especially as an Englishman, and you come out and you're playing probably not your best footy in the trial games. Jamie Humphries, full credit to him. He got a great try there. He was really impressive. Really stocky dude. You spoke about him playing at 9. I was watching his body. Very strongly built, so I think he'd be just as comfortable at 9 as he is at 7. But he had a really good game. Scored a great try, 10 out there, all individual. But he came on at a time, Toddy, in the game when South almost sort of switched there. I don't know if Wayne gave one of his great halftime speeches and put a rocket up him, but from the first half when Lewis Dodd was out there, as far as the team's energy and defence compared to the second half, they were a completely different side. So, not taking anything away from Jamie Humphries, he was a big part of that. So if he's to get the nod over Lewis, full credit to him. He's earned it through his trial form. But I just don't want to kick the boot into Lewis Dodd yet. I think it'll take him some time to get used to it. Both of those halves were playing without their star players in Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell out the back. Like that talk and influence out there around those, whoever that 7 is going to make a huge difference. The disappointing thing for South in that first half, and traditionally Wayne Bennett plays that passive slide D. Even in his best sides from Broncos, Dragons, they've always played that up and hold and slide D. But it wasn't working in the first half for whatever reason, and they looked really soft in the middle to their edges. Even Jackie White, who we love, who's one of my favourite players, but he was even a little bit off and a little bit lost in D. So there was something going on there in that first half as far as their communication. I don't know if it's Wayne bringing in new systems and testing them just because of it through being a trial game, but they looked really, really passive and weak, and it just opened up the Dragons to have a field day there early. I think South's got a long way to go. They need their players back on board for round one, but the second half they did show some positive signs. But Dragons, Gutho, Flanagan, Sione Fanua, as you said, with the 4 tries, and Valentine Holmes on that left edge. You could just see it. The best thing about trials is watching how teams attack. Leilua on that edge. He's outstanding. Both their back rows with Sewer on the other side.
They're big threats. Their back rows are massive threats. We've spoken about them before about how they if you isolate a defender on them, they'll run through them. They've got they can offload really well. Valentine Holmes just looks so sharp down their left side, and his goal kicking was outstanding on the weekend. And I'm not also kicking Lewis Dodd either, but South have a chance. They have to pick someone because Lewis Dodd isn't available for round 1 anymore because he's suspended.
Well, Humphries gets the start then, and he deserves it.
Does Humphries get the start? I would like to. I'd like to see Jack White in a different position. I feel he's just getting used up and bashed up in the centres. He takes some tough carries out of his own end. He doesn't get a lot of early ball, which I think he needs. If they don't go with Humphries and Walker's fit, I would play Walker 7 and Jack White in 6 for the start of the season because you know what you're going to get with Jack.
I don't like that combo, Toddy. Like, I just think when Walker's at 7, it just takes away all that instincts. It just takes away that. It actually restricts the ball, the service out to the edges even less, I reckon, in the fact that
you're right.
They tested with that last year.
But I'm entitled to my own opinion, and you've just cut me off.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Well, I don't agree with something you say, but I'll let you talk. Yeah, you know what? You're in one of those shit moods. That head that I seen when I first popped on this morning when I turned it on, that's the head I used to see some mornings at training, and I just felt like going, oh, here he is. He's in one of those moons. He can't find his socks. It's in the back of his ute tray full of cash. That's a funny story. We'll tell that one day about when you had to clean your ute and how much was in the tray of your ute. So if you see Mitch's car in the streets,
don't rob me.
Don't rob him because there'll be plenty of cash in the back. Let's go into the Broncos and the Dogs, which is we talk about two teams that are going to be featuring at the back end of the year, I think, this year, and they put some really strong teams out on the park on the weekend. I was excited. I was on the couch ready to go, get the first look at Renault, Hunt and Walsh together, and they produced. It didn't take them long to find their groove, and it didn't take for footy fans and people that were excited to see where and how they'd sort of structure and the way they'd play. It didn't take them long. Benny Hunt held the left side of the field really well, and Reece Walsh swung. Renault right side. It was good to see. For me, the Broncos obviously going out winners 30-14. Dogs come back late, but they enthused them. I think the speed and the heat up there in Redcliffe, KO Stadium was just. Yeah, the Broncos just way too fit, not fit because obviously it's preseason, but just fast. They looked a length faster than them, and that was probably because of the excitement of the new players that had come in. Selwyn Cobbo was great on the wing, finished some really good tries. But for me, the standouts was the halves in the early exchanges for the Broncos, which was everyone was looking at, and then Bulldogs sort of found some rhythm late and scored a few late tries. A solo effort for the big back rower. But yeah, Broncos, what was your thoughts on it? Did you like the way they played? Did you think that's how they would play with their structures?
Yeah, we sort of spoke a fair bit about Broncos and their style of footy over the last couple of shows. But yeah, I think that balance is going to just keep developing as the year goes on. Obviously with their Renault's kicking game, short and long, is as good as anyone in the comp, and now he's got a foil there that can take pressure off him. Not only take pressure off him in with his kicking, but also his game managing and his decision making. And then it just frees Walshy up, doesn't it? Just an absolute live wire. But I just love their whole dynamics, of their team. Big outside backs, as you said. Selwyn Cobbo there, Katoni Staggs, one of my favourite players. And then the pack that they got. They're going to be red hot this year. Obviously, we keep saying it's just going to be finding the right mindset, getting aligned all together, which we have full trust in Mads that he'll get that done. And you've already seen that effect on him. They've taken out the preseason trophy through trial games, picked up a nice little 100K. They're going to go into round 1, I think, against the Roosters, full of beans, and it's a worry for the Roosters next week. That's for sure.
Massive
it's going
worry.
to be a tough game. But I can't wait to watch the Broncos. You see some teams where we speak about the dynamics and this and that, but I actually just can't wait to watch the Broncos because they've just got the best players in the game, young players in the game, and then they're topped off with some really, really quality halves there that I'm excited to see how they combine in these big games because they got the squad there, that's for sure.
They use with confidence. Watching them run out on the weekend, they've got that tinker in the eye. They're sort of their smiles on their faces. Obviously, it's their first look out with their probably full team of what we'll see in round 1. Blake Moser to come back in, they're saying at 9, and looks like Corey Parks will probably jag the 14 spot with Billy Walters will probably miss out. But they looked ready to go on the weekend. And if you get that week in, week out, and as you said, it's hard to play up here in Brisbane It's hard to beat them at Brisbane with a packed crowd. They always get their big crowd there. So I think it's a big year for the Broncos.
Who gets Queensland fullback, Toddy? KP or Walshy? It's an early little question, but watching them both in trial games, geez, they both look good.
I think KP.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think they'll find a spot for Walsh. Depending on what Cherry Evans does, if Ben Hunt takes the 14 spot again off the bench or 9 with Harry Grant, how it works. I'm not a Queenslander, so it's not really phased me, but they've got the luxury to pick some players. We're going to touch on KP. I thought he's been outstanding in the trials. And it's not the big plays he's been. He's in control of everything he does. He's really starting to mature. Obviously, when you think about Kalen, I know we're talking about the Broncos, but I'm going to touch on it a little bit. You always think about Kalen as the big plays, but he's in everything. He's just the way he finds his front every time he catches the ball, bringing it back. The errors are out of his game. He's playing with confidence. But yeah, for me, Reece Walsh is their superstar at the Broncos. For the Dogs, I liked how they played. Obviously, through the middle, Kurt Mann. I like that dynamic. How he play. Yeah, he's a workhorse. He goes hard. He goes at him. If the pass isn't on, he doesn't just pass. He'll take the line on. He's a threat. So for the defense, when he's got the ball, he's a threat because he'll either dig in and play at the back or he'll run. So they can't just sort of slide off on him. He gives his outside players an opportunity to get forward and sort of into the teeth of the defence because he holds them up there.
It's been a great NRL player, Kurt Mann. I played with him, good friend of his from Newcastle, started off at Melbourne on the wing. I remember his debut, he got a try off for Cooper Cronk kick on the wing. So he came in, played in nearly every position on the field, and I played 5'8". I played in the half, he was my 5'8" at Newcastle. We had some a good run there whenever we played together. He's super strong, Kurt Mann. Like, he's one of those guys to look at, looks quite wiry and not that strong. It looks quite weak, really, when you look at his rig. A little junkie from the country, but he'll have a laugh over that. But mate, he's super strong in the gym. He's just got that Mong strength, and he's been one of their best buys over the last couple of years.
It's interesting to still see the way they sort of play left and right with their halves, with Sexton and Burton. I don't think Burton got a lot of ball over the weekend. I feel they can probably tinker with that a little bit. Obviously, the way they play, obviously, Kurt Mann in the middle, he's their link between the both of them. Sexton took the line on. I like that he's eager to run. I think he's just got to pick his opportunities when to run and when to pass. But they're going to be thereabouts, aren't they? They're glimpses of what they can do over the weekend. Obviously, the Broncos sort of got away early and just sort of, which was probably expected because it's the new look Broncos.
You talk about good coaching, Toddy, and we spoke about Serrato a few times, but just defensively, like, they all look so clinical, on the same page in everything that they do. We spoke about Serrato's intelligence to get the best out of those smaller bodies last year, and even watching them on the weekend, like, even what they lack a little bit in attack at the moment, maybe compared to that top shelf, top two sides, your Melbournes and Penrith, with obviously Sexton and Tracy in that still developing and finding their groove. They just cover it with their defence and all that. The little things off the ball, their inside pressures, the way that their centres trust their three men on edges. They're just really, you could just tell that it's just been ingrained in them since Serrato walked in the door. And I love watching them play. They all look fresh and healthy. They obviously train, have a really professional environment over there, and I can't see the Dogs finishing anything less than 6. And if they can get the best out of Sexton this year, to complement Burton and have his best year, like his breakthrough year, there's a premiership there for them for sure in the next 2 years.
Do they persist with Burton? Not Burton. Do they persist with Sexton if it doesn't gel straight away, or do they bring in a Hutchinson again, or do you just stick with Sexton and let him find his groove and work it out that way, or do they shuffle things around, or will it be results driven?
I think you got to leave him there. He's probably going to have games up and down and losses as any young half. There's going to be some games where he wins you games, and there's going to be some games where he has some plays that let the side down. But where they're at and the way that they defend, they're in nearly every contest. Like, their defence is going to be top 2, top 3 in the comp. So over the course of the year and him finding some consistency, they're going to be a better side in the finals than swapping and changing their halves, from my opinion. And Hutchinson's been a great clubman, been in and around a lot of clubs over his career and does a solid job. But leave Sexton in there and just let him get his combos and fail on the run. But he'll have way more good games than he does bad this year. And as you said before, he's taken the line on a little bit now. That's the thing that he needs to find, that edge. He's a good organiser. He gets the boys around the field, but finding his own little influence in that with his running game will be how determine how well he goes this year. But he's shown glimpses of it in the trials, so leave him in there.
Well, one team that has changed their halves that he used to play for is the Titans. And we got our first look at the much talked about Brimson and Campbell. Campbell 7, Brimson 6 on the weekend. They moved Kieran to the bench, and what a performance. It was outstanding the way they played. They outdone the Dolphins 26-18. Brimo 2 tries. Campbell's setting up tries, making breaks, just all over the park. It just looks like he had a free rein to play footy, and just they outplayed the Dolphins, which was surprising, because I was waiting to see what the Dolphins were going to bring defensively this year with Ben and Christian and Ben Wolf up there, but the Titans, they were a way different team than they were the week before. They beat him to the punch. They outplayed him. I'm not sure if it was because of the Brimo and Campbell connection, but I was really impressed with the way it went. What was your thoughts on it? Obviously, we spoke about at the start of the show that Kieran looks like a suspected partial bicep tear, which will keep him out for 12 weeks, which is a massive loss for his leadership. And him being around, but a warrior is listening to his comments and reading his comments yesterday, was that he's not done. He's signed up to play this year, and he'll be back. So we wish him well. He's a great friend of yours and a friend of mine, and he's just a warrior. And I remember messaging you during this game, one, because I was surprised that he was starting on the bench and the question marks of where he'd come on. And when he come on, Verrills was still on. He went into 13 and he took hit-ups. He went at him. The only way Kieran knows to do. He's a competitor. But just, I think it's good out there. Obviously, because we've got connections with Kieran, but I think it was a bit unfair to throw him in the middle of the field.
Yeah, we did talk about this over the weekend. There's no doubt, first and foremost, we'll go into their halves and how well they played after this. But, yeah, it's just – I hate seeing Kieran in there getting thrown in at lock, taking hit-ups. And, unfortunately, the injuries are not what, obviously, as friends and as a club and the Titans all around, you don't want to see a leader like Kieran going in for a potential bicep tear before the season's even started. But, yeah, look, there's obviously a bit of a movement there that they're looking to play Kieran more as that 14 utility type role, and then fill into the halves. I've pushed it the whole time. I'd still love to see Foz there in the halves. We'll go into Cooper comments in a minute about the reasons for that and the obstacles that the Titans are going to go through in different scenarios during the season. But yeah, look, I hate seeing Kieran taking hit ups like at 34 and 300 something games. I just don't think it's good for him or the team just having him in there taking hit-ups at lock. But anyway, credit to Brimo and Campbell. Wow, they were outstanding.
No, they were a threat everywhere they were.
Keeney at the back there, mate. Like, you talk about the Titans this year, and even the pack they got with Campbell Gillard this year now and Tino there. Obviously, their starting pack, and then with the speed that they've got in their spine, like they can go
with their outside back, yeah. They can go with anyone. Their starting 13 will go with any team.
Yeah. The risk is just with them is obviously being on the back foot and how they defensively last year, like for watching the Titans last year, and we speak glowingly about Kieran, any of their wins came off the back of his leadership and getting those boys playing their best footy, 8 out of 10 games to win games of footy. And then defensively, if the Titans were a little bit off, they just couldn't compete physically with other sides. And after the first round of the trials, I couldn't disagree with that being the same again this year. I thought they were just going to have the same. It was going to be the same old Titans again. But with a bit of higher completions on the weekend and then a bit of a shift in their halves for this game, with that all-out attack and when things are going right, like, geez, they're good to watch. And they're gonna blow teams off the park when things are going their way. But we spoke about Cooper Cronk's comments after the game about the challenge being these scenarios during the year when their defence is a little bit off and these halves or the Titans have to play on the back foot. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Toddy? And
yeah, it was an interesting one.
Cooper.
Yeah, I agree, 100% agree with Cooper, and he's probably one of the best to answer that question. Was about Campbell at 7. Is he a 7? And the way he played the other night, he's a 7, and he can grow into a 7. But the question marks for any player that plays a bit of ad lib, plays what's in front of them, is can they play off the back foot? Can they play when the chips aren't in their favour, when the ruck's really slow, when they don't have any momentum, their forwards are getting bashed up by a better team, or they're not finding any groove. The fourth tackle is slow, so they're kicking on a slow play the ball. Why he showed glimpses on the weekend that he can kick, but when there's that added pressure, they had what he was trying to say is they had all the favours on the weekend. They had the momentum, they had the quick play the balls. They were in front of everything, but that's not going to happen week in, week out. So the question marks, like anyone would have question marks, the question marks is when they play a team like the Melbourne Storm that are relentless on the slow play the balls, their attacking the kick pressure and things like Harry Grant and getting out of you, trying to put kick pressure on. That's when you can probably be the judge, and that's what Cooper's trying to say. And I'm all for that because, like, we're not taking away what Campbell and Brimo done. It's just that they're very similar players together. We talk about you need sort of a bit of different dynamics in your halves and relieve each other with the kicking game. Brimo doesn't kick a lot, but Campbell did surprise me with his kicking game. So it'll be interesting to see how they do when they don't have momentum and, like we speak about, playing on the front foot. So, but from the weekend, Gold Coast Titans fan will be rubbing their hands together and excited to see what they'll bring. Like you spoke about, their starting 13 for me is outstanding. Keanu Kinney at the back, he's just going to continue to get better. He's in everything. He runs over 200 metres most games. But for me, their starting pack, Campbell Gillard, Mo Fodawaker up front, and then Tino at lock, Bo Formore back row, and David Fafita. And then they've got speed out back, Brian Kelly, Alofi Khan Pereira. Like, players like that are just sort of always, they're going to put the pressure on you to keep at it. So, yeah, I'm impressed with the Titans. Dolphins for me on the weekend, probably still for trying to find their groove. Isaiah Katoa, the player we always speak about, like, showed that he's still got the ability to play square and sort of dig in. They just didn't have much else around him. They didn't perform to what they were last year. I don't think the Dolphins.
Yeah, the real highlight for all the trials, and you just spoke about Cooper's comments and being able to play on the front foot. It's funny how much the game's evolved, right? And it's such a young man's game now, a game of speed and power and athleticism. And if you don't have that, it's so hard to compete in the modern game, isn't it? Like, you see we spoke about Isaiah Longy at Para coming in at fullback, and we spoke about the young Penrith halves. Like, they're quick, they're fast, they're all instinct, same as Brimo and Campbell there. Like that, when the game goes your way nowadays with the modern game, with the 6 agains and the short dropouts, if there's high completions in a live ball game, you got to take young legs all day, don't you? There's a place.
100%.
The reason we push hard for Kieran, obviously, and his record speaks for himself, but we agree with Coops in that way. There's the big games that can be different. At big games and origins, it's when it's a slower ruck. You still need the old dogs. You need your Cherry Evans. You need your Benny Hunts and your Adam Reynolds to kick you to corners and think outside the box. But these open games of footy, especially these trial games when it's all just live ball and plenty of interchanges, like young legs all day, right? It's just crazy how much the game's evolved and changed, and they're just so impressive now. Like the speed of them, just the outside backs too. You see some of the outside backs that were blooded, even in the Dolphins outfit, even in the Titans there, the big winger on the weekend, the Fijian guy that was on the right. I should know his name.
For the Dogs, Rena Karma,
like him in open space and that. They're just, the game has just done such a turn, hasn't it? And I hope it doesn't keep getting rule changes because it's getting too quick. There's a time and place for still having the old dogs,
the big guys, the old dogs, with the old tricks,
with the brains.
Like you, one dog. Well, I guess this will probably lead us into our next question from one of our fans, and it's our great mate Hainsey from the Sports Shed charity game. Does well. He's asked you, Mitch. Any chance he's a massive Roosters fan, Hainsey. He goes, any chance if Robbo rings you today? Talking about an old dog and old tricks. That's me, mate, you. Any chance for the Roosters before we talk about the Knights and young legs, Fletcher Sharp, but we will ask the question.
Hainsey, you saw us play.
Hey, Mitch, it's Robbo. How you going, buddy? Any chance?
Hainsey, you saw us play last week, bro. You ain't signing me. Last Sunday. Great to play with you last week, mate. You were our best player, no doubt. He was outstanding, Hainsey, wasn't he?
Although you did put a handbrake on once, Hainsey. I was disappointed with the handbrake, but other than that, you were pretty impressive.
There's plenty of handbrakes getting around on the day, but
100%.
But no, mate, I don't miss footy. I love playing. I love watching footy. I love training, but honestly, it looks so hard. I spoke about young legs. My legs are way too old.
He loves being an armchair critic now, Hainsey.
Yeah, it's easier that way. Sixes and Sevens is brought to you by Good Day Daily Multivitamins. If you're looking to take your health a little more seriously and are not quite sure where to start, Good Day is a simple and effective way to get yourself essential vitamins and minerals. Packed with over 60 health benefits and 100% of your B vitamins, it's the easiest way to feel good fast. With a delicious passion fruit taste, just pour one sachet into water and you're good to go. Head to begoodhealth.com.au, use the code HALVES for 10% off your order. Pair that with a subscription for a 20% discount. It's the least you could do.
The Knights on the weekend just outplayed the Roosters in all aspects of the game. We spoke about Fletcher Sharp last week because obviously we speak about a lot of sixes and sevens on this because of the namesake and the positions we played. But on the weekend, we got some glimpses of him in open space. Some chances that probably players wouldn't be able to take, and he took. Scored a double. He's just fast in open field. I love the way the Knights played. I know I was last week we were question marks about who they've got for Brayley, but on the weekend, Crosland stepped up and played outstanding at 9. Brayley coming at 14 I thought was outstanding too. So he'll put pressure on whoever was looking at the 14 spot. But we spoke about Kalen before, and you always sit back and excited to watch Kalen play because the big things that he can come up with. But just he's starting to become a complete player, even though he's always has been. But he looks fresh. He looks focused. He's obviously a big leader at the club, and he just the way he speaks in interviews, he's still got that confident edge, but he understands how quick it can turn. I think. He's in his performance. He's shown that he's there for the long game, and I think it's a massive year for Kalen. If for the Knights to do well, and you probably won't take too much out of it from the weekend. And he did speak about how impressive it was to keep the Roosters to 10, which is a topic that we're going to speak about for Roosters. It's obviously testing times, a lot of players leaving, and not so many coming in, and still some players out on the sideline, and how they're playing. Where their points come from. That's something I want to ask you, Mitch. Where do you think the Roosters' points can come from? Do they have to change the way they're playing, or do they have to adapt to the way Chad plays because he's a controlling half and gets him around, or they have to throw a bit of ad-lib in there? Because some of their players on the weekend, and you don't have to dive too much into it, but their plays out the back looked like it was very premeditated. So they'd get to a position on the field, they like to sort of get to that far post and then come back if they're sort of block for block. But there wasn't so much happening in between. It was very premeditated before the line, and it was sort of just out the back and do your best, and they just ran out of space. I'd like to sort of get your thoughts on that, and then obviously touch on the Fletcher Sharp stuff. And do you think that's where they're going to go at 6, and how the Knights went?
Yeah, the Chookies, obviously I work there, so it's I've got a bit of an attachment there and doing a bit more stuff with the juniors. But yeah, being in and around the preseason, there's obviously a lot of anticipation at the club. You can understand with all the player turnover and the senior players that have gone, it's only natural to have a bit of anticipation, a bit of the unknown. And I'd say that there'd be a pretty dark mood there this morning, coming off a pretty bad loss against the Knights. As you said, it's probably the way the Roosters in the situation this year. They're trying to find a new identity. When you lose all those players that we spoke about, especially senior players and your best players in pretty much all those key positions, you've got to rediscover an identity, and you've got to rediscover it fast. And obviously Chad's come in as an older half. We spoke about it as well, that he's come in probably as a foil originally before Sammy Walker got injured. Luke Keary makes his decision late in the year to retire, and then obviously go over and play at the Catalans. So there was some sort of probably decisions there that were left late in a way, where from all reports and from my own opinion, Chad's been a great pickup, because for a guy
100%.
A guy that's come in on a low wage, and then with all the experience, especially around preseason, he's obviously offered the group a great amount. But how Chad's body holds up throughout the whole season, and then how the combinations off the back of that and where they find their spark this year. I just think for the Chooks, they've got a really good half there in Toby Robbell, who I've got a good relationship with. He's a really, really good player, played really good in the trials. Jake Elliott as a young 6 there. It's going to probably be a year of blooding some players, I'd say. Obviously, the bad news out of the weekend, Spencer Leonard's potentially also already in doubt. The new rugby recruit Mark out in the centres is in doubt for round 1. He's been probably their shining light out of the trial game. So, yeah, I think the most disappointing thing out of the game for the Roosters is we spoke about their attack, but it's the defence. The club's prided themselves on their D over a long time, and the boys wouldn't be too happy with their D from that first trial. And they got the Broncos round 1, so they'll be right, but there's some identity to discover quickly, and how they're going to approach the start of the year.
It's when you talk about Chatty there, and I wasn't getting into Chatty because I think he's doing his job. He's doing his job the way he does throughout his career. And you speak about the young kids at the Roosters that are coming through, and it's a perfect leader or perfect role model for them to watch, Chad. From more reports from preseason, he won a lot of their fitness stuff. He's an ultimate professional. His work ethic and the craft and to get better at his game, for them to watch that and be around him. I think that's where the Roosters probably, when they first signed Chad, was around that. It was about bringing their development through the younger kids, being that backup for Sam Walker with him getting injured. I just think there's the players around him also have got to step up. But as you said, it's testing times, and all clubs go through those rebuilds things, but they have to sort of find it fast. Because they've got the Broncos on the weekend for round 1. So it's definitely a concern, but as we know, the Roosters, they find a way to win, and hopefully they'll be able to capture that form at some point, I'm sure, once Sam Walker and Brendan Smith and their troops are all back on deck. But like anything, you have to go through these phases, and the Knights on the weekend were just way too good.
What do you think, Toddy? You spoke about Fletcher Sharp. They're talking Jack Cogger and Fletcher Sharp starting halves for round 1, with obviously KP out the back. You know what you're going to get with KP, and he does. He looks fit. I ran into Kalen in Manly about 3 weeks ago. He was with his missus down there. I walked past, hadn't seen him for a while, and He does. He looks so focused. He's grown into that leader now, and he's at that sweet spot of his career where, you know, if KP is going to be one of the best players in the competition again, but and even the performances with the Knights on the weekend, they're always super fit. They look hard. They've got great outside backs. They've got a great pack. But can those halves get it done in the finals? Can they get it done when the whips are cracking, or is it going to be another year with the Knights just lurking around that 8? What's your own opinion on that? Because I was super impressed. The way they looked yesterday in their trial form, especially this last game, they were really impressive. But it's not a matter of just being thereabouts. The Knights, how can they get that next step? Is it?
Yeah. Well, I like Fletcher Sharp at 6, and I was obviously had question marks from the first week and then watching him closely yesterday. When they play down his side of the field, so he parks himself on the left side and Cogger on the right. When they come to his from long shape, so from anywhere from outside far post or near post, so for fans or the listeners, it's the right. So if we're looking at the goalpost, it's the right side, so anywhere from 5 metres to 10 metres out from the post. Fletcher Sharp plays 3 wide, so it's Cogger, Ponga, Fletcher Sharp, which I think gives him the chance to free up, and he only has one job, well, not one job. It gives him a chance to use his speed and then either pass short or run because he's got Bradman Best. There's no point bypassing Bradman Best when you've got an opportunity to give him space where on the other side, Fletcher Start will hold his short side, will give him a chance to play the short side, and then the long sweep to the right side with Cogger is Ponga sweeping to the right side and playing that shape, and Fletcher will hold his short side. So I think the way they played on the weekend, it gives Fletcher Sharp just a definitive role of what he's got to do. And if he does his role really well and gets better at his role week in, week out, which I'm sure he will because he's new to that position and new to that position in first grade. If he continues to get better at it and Cogger does what he always does, he steers the ship, got a great kicking game and sort of gets the team around the park, I think KB can help Fletcher Sharp more than Fletcher Sharp can help KP there because he jumps in between them and frees up Fletcher Sharp where like the week before Fletcher Sharp was sort of off Cogger, then it was going to Kalen where it sort of fizzled out a little bit. But I think they're a chance. The way they played on the weekend, for fans, they'd be excited about what they've seen. But then the same thing again, it's about doing that against a top 4 team and week in, week out. But I like the way the Knights look. Obviously, any team that KP's in, they're going to be a threat because he's an outstanding player, outstanding competitor, and he's an outstanding leader and winner. So, yeah, for the Knights, I like the way they played. It will just take time for them, and the critics will be out, I guess, so they'll work like they always are with new tested positions and players. But we'll sort of probably regroup on that chat at about round 10 and see where they're sitting, how they're going is probably the easy answer.
Yeah, 100%. I'll tell you what I do like, the talk of Tyson Frizzell moving into the middle at times. I love Tyson where he's at in his career at his age. I like Frizz playing in the middle for him. With Dylan Lucas and that there, sort of starting to own that back row role. Obviously, Frizz, absolute champion player. He can play both positions. But with the modern game and his leg speed and his experience, I like him in the middle. I think he could be a real X factor for him there. If
he brings that go forward, a bit of punch, a bit of late feet also, instead of just sort of hit up. He changes the dynamic a little bit because once he goes in the middle, he's not just getting to position, finding his front. He's using his feet because he's got a late right foot step. Yeah. So he'll change it up and he'll speed up the momentum in the middle. And for the Knights, they'll need momentum change because the players that they've got, they like to play on the front foot and get him behind the markers, and he'll be able to create that if he goes into the middle. The next team we're talking about is the Storm and the Cowboys. Cowboys take out the winners 36-24. Drinkwater was in everything. You gave him Glan Raps last week when we reviewed the Cowboys. He was in absolutely everything from the start of the game to when he went off. We've got some glimpses, my first look at Tom Duffy in first grade. I've seen him play reserve grade up there. He's outstanding talent, and he's a bigger kid than I thought. He steered the ship really well on the weekend. Tommy did, and was obviously outstanding with him. But the Cowboys look strong. Mm-hmm. They look sharp. They look fast. They got that chance to play the style of footy they like to play. Like we spoke about last week, is that their key players need to play 8 out of 10 performances, and on the weekend they played 8 or 9 out of 10 performances. For me, Drinkwater probably a 10 out of 10 if we're going back to the old scoring system with Rugby League magazine that, you know, you used to check out. A 10 out of 10. Old Tony Adams, the mole, used to do that. Yeah, he wrote my book, Tony Adams.
Did he?
Yeah. So there you go, Tony. There's a little rap for you. There's a 10 out of 10 performance for Drinkwater. But yeah, the Cowboys, they looked really good. It was their first look at sort of the Melbourne players, their star players. They didn't play any of the other trials. Munster was in. But just, yeah, they were outstanding.
Yeah,
the Cowboys.
Scotty Drinkwater, he's such a good player. He sort of gets a lot of raps, doesn't he? But maybe not as many as he deserves. Absolute outstanding footballer. Just beautiful to watch, isn't he? Just graceful, just comes up with ad-lib footy all across the board. Thomas Duffy, we spoke last week about Jake Clifford getting the first hands on the 7 jersey, but there might be a different argument this week. I thought he was really impressive. Like you said, he's a big body. Both of them are, Jake Clifford and Duffy. So they've got 2 good sizes there in the 7 jersey, whichever way they decide to go. But, yeah, it's funny. Like last week we spoke about how poor Cowboys were in defence. I know they had a fair few players out, but it's just funny how from one week to the next they're just 2 completely different sides, and that's going to be their issue this year. It's going to be finding consistency on the road and at home and in defence. We keep saying it, but if they can do that with the players that they got off the back of it, they'll blow teams off the park. It's just a matter of finding that consistency. You can't really say too much else about them, but when they're on, they're just so good to watch, and it's led from Scotty Drinkwater and Johnny Bateman too. I thought was good. He's obviously become a bit of a journeyman. He's been around to a few clubs now, but he just gives you. I think off the field he'll give them a lot too. He's a bit of a gypsy, from all reports. A good mate of mine in England's real good mates with him, and they all love him. Love him as a bloke. Love him as a mate. They say in and around a group he's just a solid guy, and he's got a bit of rogue about him. So I reckon he'll bring a bit of an edge to them up there, and he just competes. He gets in the opposition's face. I love watching him play. And Val Holmes' replacement, Jackson Purd, he was really impressive, wasn't he? He can
play 7 and 6 too, Jackson Purdue, but from all reports from the preseason that he's going to take that spot of Valentine Holmes that he left. And he was good on the weekend. He showed some speed. He's got a bit of skill with him too. You like to have centres be able to pass. Obviously, he's got a halves background, so he'll be able to pass. But yeah, it was very impressive. Obviously, Papau's replacement, Sue Fongalongo, he'd be in any team starting lineup. Just the ability he gets across the field and moves.
He's one of those young legs we spoke about, eh? Like just
100%
dynamite.
Yeah, you can't judge too much in the Storm until they get the other big superstars back, but they show glimpses of what they'll be like. They get obviously Hughes back for round 1. Big Nelson won't be back round 1, but they'll be hard to beat the Storm. They're still my pick.
Yeah. You can't write Storm off for round 1. Obviously, be a bit disappointed, but yeah, I can't wait to watch them. Who they got round 1? Melbourne. They've got
Parramatta.
You'd be throwing every bit of coin you got on them to win that. They never lose round 1, do they?
Well, that's a wrap up of all of our games from the weekend just gone. Obviously, the big talking points out of it was the performances of some of the big players that we spoke about. The poor performances of the teams have got sort of lapped up, but there's some impressive signs for some of the teams going into round 1 for the 2025 season. We've had some technical issues today, so we're probably going to pull it up here, and Mitch will ask me my 3 questions or 5 questions live from Vegas on Wednesday. So thanks for listening. Keep supporting 6s and 7s. Send your questions in if you've got any. But have a great Monday. I'm fresh as a daisy. And I love looking at my mate Mitch Pearce when he's in an arrogant mood.
Enjoy Vegas, my mate. Can't wait to do our potty from over there.
Love you.
Make sure it's a good view, eh? I'm envious.
I will, mate.
Wish I was there with you.